If you grew up in the Nintendo Entertainment System era of the 1980s, you almost certainly played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! The boxing title was unlike anything else out at the time. Characters were huge and expressive. Opponents were more of a puzzle to solve instead of a button-mashing fest. And Mike Tyson remains one of the most legendary final bosses of all time. Punch-Out's history is full of fascinating facts. Did you ever wonder how much Nintendo paid Mike Tyson for his likeness? Or that some of the music is from an old Razor ad? We cover all that and more in Punch-Out's Weird and Wonderful Roundup. Round 1. It's easy to take Punch-Out's timeless gameplay and appealing presentation for granted. However, if you look back at what came before, it was a huge leap forward. Sega's heavyweight champ in 1976 was possibly the first fighting game and featured goofy boxing glove controllers. Activision's Boxing in 1980 showcased ant-like pugilists from a top-down perspective. Punch-Out Arcade in 1984 utilized new sprite zooming tech to make the colorful characters feel larger than life. Nintendo creative mastermind Shigeru Miyamoto designed the boxers and took them to animation house Studio Junio to make them shine like real movie characters. The dual screen setup pushed nearly all of the HUD elements to the top screen so that players could look their rivals in the eye and be fully immersed. When Punch-Out came home to the NES in '87, Nintendo added even more. Pulse-pounding music played during the fights. Inter-round dialogue with trainer Doc Lewis and rival fighters told a story of how the fights were going. Montages featuring protagonist Little Mac jogging in a pink sweatsuit added heart. And Tyson's intimidating one-hit kill uppercuts frightened off all but the bravest challengers. Round 2. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is one of the most famous licensed sports titles in the history of gaming. But how much did the 80s boxing Megastar make for lending his name and likeness? Not as much as you think. In January 1986, Genyo Takeda was in the midst of porting his arcade hit Punch-Out to the Nintendo Entertainment System. Meanwhile, Nintendo of America president Minoru Arakawa attended CES in Las Vegas and happened to watch a 19-year-old Mike Tyson TKO David Jaco in the first round. Arakawa was stunned and called Takeda to recommend they sign this guy for the NES boxing game. The deal was made, but since Tyson had yet to win a title at that time, he was reportedly paid only $50,000 for a 3-year contract. Over the next year, Tyson would go on to win the 3 heavyweight titles before the release of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on October 18, 1987. The timing for Nintendo couldn't have been better. Compare this to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, where just one of Hawk's annual checks in the early 2000s was for $4 million. Round 3. The moment you turn on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, the first screen proclaims, "Mike is waiting for your challenge," as a whimsical march plays. But did you know that this music is actually a 1950s ad jingle? The song is officially titled "To Look Sharp," and the tune was the theme music for the Gillette Cavalcade of Sports. The Razor Company was the sole sponsor of this show in the early days of television. While the program covered football, baseball, and everything in between, Friday night boxing at Madison Square Garden was the primary focus. Just like current NFL intros get you in the mood for football, the Look Sharp March was synonymous with boxing back in the 1950s. Decades later, it became a nostalgic touchstone. In 1980's Raging Bull, the house band plays the tune at protagonist Jake LaMotta's Miami nightclub, and Coleco's head-to-head electronic boxing used the tune in 1981, 3 years ahead of Punch-Out's arcade debut. Round 4. Simply beating the final namesake boss in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is a legendary achievement in its own right, but some extremely dedicated players can play through the entire game blindfolded. A Punch-Out pro named Sinister1 first attempted the challenge at annual charity speedrunning event Awesome Games Done Quick in 2012. It was a relatively brief run, but he returned in subsequent years, making it all the way to Mike Tyson at AGDQ 2014. A player named Jack Wedge would be the first to beat the game blindfolded in one sitting in 2015. By AGDQ 2016, Sinister1 and Zallard1 raced blindfolded head-to-head to beat the entire game, with Zallard1 taking home the victory at 25 minutes and 27 seconds. The current record for a blindfolded Punch-Out run is a ridiculous 18 minutes 3 seconds, held by the legendary Summoning Salt. This player holds the world record in nearly every Punch-Out category. Incredibly, this time would place him in the top 30 against players fighting with full use of all their senses.